Hi there, this is Jonathan Nituch with Procept Associates. Today in this video we're going to talk about stakeholder personas. This is another new section to BABOK version 3. In this case it's BABOK 10.43.4, stakeholder personas. So stakeholder personas is falling into this overall technique of stakeholders, identification, management, analysis, and so on. And there's some familiar things in here, right? Stakeholder list, we've had this for a long time. Stakeholder map, what's the interest and influence of our stakeholders and how can we see that visually. RACI charts, making sure that we understand the roles and responsibilities of all of the people that are involved in our project or that are involved in our solution. So these are some very familiar things that we've had for a long time, and then all of a sudden, we've come up with this thing, stakeholder persona. Well, what is that? And that's what we'll talk about in this video. What is a stakeholder persona? So our BABOK definition for a stakeholder persona is a fictitious character or archetype that exemplifies the way a typical user interacts with a product. Well, that's, I think, a pretty good definition, right? So it's a fictional character or archetype. That's kind of a weird thing. Usually our stakeholder lists have, names of stakeholders, or we can identify a group of stakeholders. But the stakeholder persona is a little bit different, and, it's a great name, right? Persona. It's a person, right? It is a fictional person. We're actually going to give this person a name and try to categorize the users of our solution under these kind of fictional archetypes. So if we compare this to a stakeholder list, a stakeholder list on the left-hand side here is, it's a pretty bland-looking thing, isn't it? It's each ID for the stakeholder, what's the name for that stakeholder, but it doesn't really tell us much more than that, right? Definitely an important and powerful technique for us to continue using, but in certain circumstances, we need a little bit more to understand our stakeholders properly. And that's where the stakeholder persona on the right-hand side comes in, right? So the stakeholder persona, number one thing about it is this is a visual, right? This is a visual thing that should be on your wall, right? On the wall in your shared space, or on your wall in your cubicle, or whatever it is, right? Who are all of these personas that we're dealing with in a visual kind of way? So there's definitely a media type of aspect to this. And the second thing is that it's really a much richer description. So we're way beyond here just having a name, public user. We're going to develop more of an understanding of this public user, right, or categories of the public user. Who are they? How old are they? What's their demographic? What are they concerned with? What are they worried about? What are they thinking about? How are they motivated? How might they behave? These are the kind of questions that we're going to ask and try to answer with our stakeholder personas. So stakeholder personas, where did they come from? Well, they came from market segmentation. So they came from really the realm of marketing, trying to target products to the right geographic, demographic, or behavioral segment. And that now starts to make some sense, right? That's something a little bit familiar to us probably as business analysts with some business experience. We're aware that markets are segmented and people are targeting different groups. So that led into using this for product development. Who's going to be the persona of people who might use this product or service. Definitely in terms of media, who is this show for? Who is this movie audience intended to be for? Politics is also another area where you'll see this. Political campaigns will establish marketing personas for the various groups of constituents that they're trying to reach and win those votes. And so you hear this term, buyer persona, marketing persona. That's kind of the history of where these things came from. Alan Cooper, in his 1998 book, The Inmates Running the Asylum, took this marketing persona or buyer persona concept and started to apply it to application development, software development, solution development, and these things that are kind of more in the realm of business analysis, right? So that was kind of the crossover of taking this marketing idea and how can we apply this when we're developing solutions, especially solutions that are going to be used by a large number of people, where there's a benefit benefit and value to kind of segmenting them and developing this understanding. So what does a marketing persona look like, or rather, what does a stakeholder persona look like? Here's our example. So this persona, you know, what can we see here? First of all, in the top left corner, there's got to be a visual, right? So we need to find a clip art or you know, some kind of image of a person. What does this person look like? That's important. Oftentimes, our solution teams are kind of developing in a bubble off somewhere. You know, who are the actual people, right? If your marketing persona in this case is, you know, it's kind of a younger worker, we give him a name, right? So Warehouse West. He's a young man who's working in warehouse. Tells us, you know, their profile in terms of demographics, education, gender, you know, what's their turnover rate in our organization. So there's no real rules here in terms of what we put in there. It's going to be appropriate to your project. But what's their profile? What's their attitudes towards the project? How are they motivated? What are their pain points? What are their usability concerns, right? The more that we can identify and describe about this person, Wes, then, you know, the better off we're going to be in terms of developing products and solutions that meet Wes's needs. These personas can be very powerful. I've had situations where I use them in my organization and actually send someone from my team to a conference, trying to prospect and meet some individuals who met these personas, and he said, you know, it was unbelievable. You know, there was a table and there was you know, Mary, Mark, Sue, and Louise, which were the 4 personas of people that I wanted to meet. You know, and Louise even looked like the person in the picture, right? That meant that our personas were well defined. We'd done a good job at creating those personas, and you know, they had a value, and they were helping us to reach the right people and to produce our solution, you know, for the right people. Having said that, sometimes you do need to be a little bit cautious with personas, right? Because personas definitely involve a little bit of stereotyping, right? You're taking, you know, a very diverse group, a large group of different people, and segmenting them into these kind of personas. So that does involve some stereotyping to a certain extent. And, you know, an example of this gone wrong was at the big BBC. So BBC Radio, they had a marketing persona called Dave and Sue, and Dave and Sue were a little bit, you know, older generation, and at one point, some of their communication regarding Dave and Sue actually got leaked to the media. So it kind of said, you know, if you know, don't bring on any guests younger than this age because we're targeting Dave and Sue and blah blah blah, and you know, just the tone of that email really wasn't very complimentary, let's say, and there was a big backlash, right? So with your personas, what you want to do is have your personas be honest, right? If these are the actual people who are using your solution or who will be using your solution, it's fair to identify who those people are, but be honest in those personas, but keep the goal in mind, right? So this isn't a chance to, you know, put these people on the dartboard and throw darts at them. We're trying to develop an understanding of our personas so that we can meet their needs, right? It's an altruistic activity that we're doing here. This isn't something that should, you know, degrade into, you know, making fun of people or you know, some kind of that negative aspect of stereotyping and so on, right? So just use caution when you're creating your personas to make sure that you phrase things, you know, in a positive way, and that you're still being honest and you're still meeting those goals of producing personas that can allow your solution team to create a great product for those personas. That's the real point of what we're doing here. Thanks very much for your time. Once again, this has been Jonathan Nituch with Procept Associates. If you have any questions about this content or would like to learn more about this topic, feel free to visit our website and take a look at the list of courses and training that we have available.